I would request Dr. Dayakar Rao to please step forward to the podium, make his presentation, then take his seat.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Dayakar Rao at the podium. Thank you.
At the outset, I thank the organizers for inviting this and making this program millet inclusive. I would call the Pulses and Millets Conclave, because you have accommodated millets as a part of the International Year of Millets. I just would like to take you through the journey of this overview of millet landscape in India, which is very vital. I think many of you are not, might be familiar, but I think a little overview will give you a picture so that how we go forward. I represent from Indian Council of Agriculture Research, Indian Institute of Millet Research, and a NutriHub, which is a Section 8 company, a commercial facade of Indian Institute of Millet Research. So we know all that millets, we have been hearing about that. There are about 8 millets we are promoting, but apart from that, we have teff and fonio from Africa. But recent times that we know that these are being termed as a nutri-cereals, but very recently the budget announcement, where the new name is given as a Shri Anna by the Honorable Finance Minister, and that's the way they have the two important things that which we need to understand when we talk about millets. Today, if we are talking about millets, they are nutri-cereals. The nutrition part could be the USP. Second thing is they are climate resilient crops. I think these two things are very important to bring in and make in a millet include. It's a country like India, led by Honorable Prime Minister, who is really promoting this millets and taking to the global platform. I think now we should be very happy that a new monkey, see what we are able to, what we were dreaming that has come true. Now some of the special characters, they can go through the adverse soil and climate conditions, especially the water requirement is 300 to 400 mm compared to 1200 mm water. That is what makes it a very, very really a crop which can stand and hardiness. Shorter duration, they can go as a contingency plans. Each crop has something robust nature in terms of fitting into the bill, especially in the drylands scenario. So they are now termed as smart foods also. Smart foods, I think if you want me to define, they are good for for each one of us, it is pertinent whether we have pulses, grains, whether Brazil or India or any other country. So low glycemic index, rich in minerals, vitamins, lifestyle diseases, good for planet. I told you that they are low water footprints, zero carbon footprints, and energy efficient crops. I think with the low water footprints, as I was already told you that, and with regard to the smallholder farmers which they grow, I think it's going to be a very short duration crop, very minimal resources, resilient, adapted to harsh, give one irrigation and double the yield. And of recent thing, there is an emergence of a lot of business around this. Earlier it was grown as a domestic crop, consumed by the farmers only. Now the face of millets has changed as a commercial crop. They need to go for not just for themselves, but for the urban health ailing people and many other nutrition properties. So it is good for business too. I think 400 startups have come up in the past 4 years. That is, there are several factors driving millet trade today. I'm going to talk about other things, but the sustainability and health and also inclination towards the nutritional value that it has. Now, if you see this table, which is compared with jowar and various products that has come up, I think it shows a mute testimony about the richness of the millets nutrition compared to the vis-a-vis that of rice and wheat, whether in terms of calcium, magnesium, iron, in terms of good carbohydrates that are present or the antioxidants that are present, and the dietary fiber that is present. So we see that at any time they are superior than that of the wheat and rice in most of the cases. And that's the reason they have a lot of health potentials also in terms of type 2 diabetes, in terms of immunity that they can impart, and the heart diseases, reducing blood pressure, and because they are gluten free, they are good for the celiac disease also. The list goes on, like non-alcoholic fatty because of the, they are also considered as probiotic and all this. So considering the various benefits of the millets, today we are projecting that. Now if you want to know the real landscape of that area, production and yield, we have about 90 million hectares, metric tons is being produced from the 74 million hectares that is grown across the world, and 90% of the millet production is contributed by sorghum and pearl millet, the two major millets. Let's keep that in mind. The country, the global, India contributes about 20% of the global millet production, and of course we know that it is 80% of the Asia's production is brought out there. So India is the largest producer, no wonder, and we have a big opportunity beckoning, trying to take to the various countries. And of course we have a lot of productive potential. They are grown in marginal lands. If they are shifted to better lands, I think the productive potential is there. Now somebody wants to know about this individual millet. Some of you not heard about it, but I want to tell you that at least 3 millets, 100% of the millets are grown here only, those 3. In finger millet about more than 50%, pearl millet close to 50%, sorghum 7%. So this way the contribution of millets in the country is now if you want to know the state-wise contribution, Rajasthan, Maharashtra, Karnataka 3 comprises, and the Uttar Pradesh comprise about 90 plus total production of the country. There are several districts which we have identified, but if you want to take individual millet, bajra is grown primarily in Rajasthan, jowar, in case of jowar, what you call sorghum, is in Maharashtra, ragi in Karnataka, small millets in Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh. So you can see the agroecology variation that takes place so that it makes it a pan-India crop. So totally when you want to get into the business of millets, I think 90% of the millets are major millets, bajra, jowar and ragi, because the supply chain management is very vital. 0.5 million hectares out of the 15 million hectares, it comes from the small millets, which are rich nutritional sources, houses for thing. Now if you try to understand that the transition that took place, 1950s it is about 35 million hectares, today it is about 15 million hectares. 20 million hectares have gone out of millet cultivation. Now you want to bring them back, but the beauty of this thing is the production remains same despite the loss of 20 million hectares. And you see that the productivity that is going up and up. That is a very positive signs despite it is relegated to the marginal lands. So there we see that if today's context in the international year of millets, lot of demand that is coming up through. So there is a positive message that comes from the productivity where we can really just put up and match up with the demand, but the focus and the policy has to come, because the big picture is that maize, cotton, sugarcane, I think millets must compete with them on the ground level. So domestic consumption wise, not much data is available, but state wise and country wise we did some survey, and we found that there are 1 or more times in a week this is growing bigger, the consumption is growing bigger in all the cities, and that is a positive sign again compared to the rural scenario and all that. Now if you want to try to see that the total as a direct food must be there, but FMCG sector is growing about 8% in case of sorghum, and to ragi it is about 10%, but in 2030 it is going up to 20%. I think that growth we need to capture and try to bring in, because this is what the industry and the startups that are going to contribute and bring in the variety of the products that are equivalent to that of the rice and wheat. So India's countries, even the millet export also, 3% close to CAGR, and 5th largest exporter of the, of course in terms of the money about 226 crores, but we are going to really target this with the government of India pushing up in a big way. So mostly it is being grown as exported as the commodity, but now the new area that is emerging is the value added production and all that. Indian Institute of Millet Research, we did some 10-15 years ago a beautiful story that which we have built up, try to bring in how to create demand for that, because that time supply was fine, so we want to create that. So we brought out all the stakeholders on a common platform and try to pilot a millet value chain. That's what made all the difference. Today the technology is made available because we could address the most difficult chains, weakest chains in the value chain, and we try to fix those problems. And today, that if government of India is trying to just promote it, we are ready with the technology. I think India being the largest, unlike rice and wheat, where there is several technologies that are there that evolved over 100 years, India had a responsibility to build up these technologies, machinery, processing, nutritional data, everything. That is what the Indian Institute of Millet Research today has taken in the form of various components, and then today with the private sector we are going hand in hand and trying to take to the new level. There were several gaps that were there, especially they were inconvenient, people don't want to eat. So from that stage the convenience is brought in, shelf life is improved, and we're trying to scale up the things so that the industry may take it in the way. So I'm just, these are all various aspects of the processing that a story, hard work that has done at the Indian Institute of Millet Research, bringing to a time where we are able to present very proudly this success story before you in terms of all the things that are required about the village. Processing machinery was not available, zero. From there that now today we have the small millets, especially the primary processing is still a problem. I think we would like to work with the IPGA and others. Now, in today's context, it's not that Indian Institute of Millet Research alone. We need to go together, build up a platform, partnership, and try to see that how we can do that, because the challenge is enormous. No other country has this technology. What we have, we can replicate to them. Definitely we are ahead of the rest of the countries. But then we have to go forward, much forward, in terms of the research base and try to bring in, because you try to talk about rice and wheat polish. Today we don't want millets to be polished to that extent and lose that the nutri-cereal thing. So we built up data on the standards, and the data is ready, and to make, this is what a typical tortilla or a roti type, you cannot make with hand. So we brought out some indigenous machinery and try to bring in so that the domestic woman can do that, because there is no gluten. It is so difficult, hot water doing with that and all. Now the latest technology, it is the machine is going to be available for 3,000 rupees, I think. And you can see noodles, cookies, the machinery that are there. The most important is the nutritional changes after processing are being under control. So we did a lot of exercise, they put the data in place, and the polishing, what should be the level of polishing that we should be able to take up, so that because in the absence of such data, the trade, the people can misutilize this thing. So the grades and standards we have put in place, and as an institute with responsibility we are working on diversified processing technology. Now the noodles or pasta, vermicelli, cold extrusion, puffing, hot extrusion, flaking, when from zero level we have come to this thing. The latest thing is going to be there. But one important thing I want to put across to you is that for every processing there could be an increase in nutrition or decrease in nutrition. We have done it a very scientific way. Which of the technologies can increase the nutrition and which of the technologies decrease the nutrition, and accordingly, so that, and mainstreaming the millets in the in the captive markets, government funded programs like midday meal scheme, ICDS programs. I think this will help us take us a long way and create a demand for the farmers. And now some of the advanced technologies like analog rice, the technology is available, or you have milk powders, and then analog cheese, and the plant-based proteins. Here I would like to pause one moment and talk the marriage that should happen between the millet and the pulses. We are talking about the protein, but we have to talk about the quality protein. That is very important. The quality protein is determined by the presence of amino acids. In case of pulses, all of you are very, that no plant-based amino acids are having the complete protein, all amino acids are present in a single commodity. Here in protein of pulses is deficient in methionine, while millets have that methionine in plenty. So why don't we blend those things and bring in a quality protein? So this is very, very vital for us to. Now the pulses and millets are the cousins. We all know that they are grown in the side by side and all this. But in the plate also we know that. So how we blend it? The new products that are coming like the plant-based meats and all those things should find such an integration and a blending so that we take this thing to the market and give a consumer the value that is needed and all those things. And product-wise millet fodder, breakfast, bakery foods, beverages. Today you find all of the products that are there. I just want to put a pause again. My plate for the day declared by the National Institute of Nutrition. They say out of 260 mg of 260 grams of cereals you consume, I think you should have 90 grams of millets. I think you can see millet processing diversified products. Now they have come into the form of the international cuisines. Some of the Brazilian cuisines also are made by Indian Institute of Millet Research. Traditional and recipes for ICDS and midday meals are ready. The futuristic approach has to be 360-degree, taking the millets to all the areas. Now, the NutriHub, which is a commercial package of Indian Institute of Millet Research, we have about close to 300 plus startups. We are funding. We are also funding and giving all the 360-degree hand-holding. Now, they are going to make a very big noise, especially, and make some sort of an value to the world. When the Prime Minister is announcing, he should have some ammunition. These are the startups which we have built up, and they are going to see that when the floodgates are opened now, they are really exporting the things and all that. So about 400 startups are that which we built up a common facility center with all the big machinery. When there was no machinery, today they don't need to worry about the machinery. And these are the colorful startups that have come, and today I think one of the startup is going to do that. The journey has been very tough journey, but today we are standing tall with the United Nations government, state government embracing millets, and the Finance Minister has announced and upgraded Indian Council of Agriculture, Indian Institute of Millet Research as the global center of exchange. I think this is a sense of fulfillment for us. We are here to deliver. We are here to make things happen. And with all the 360-degree wherewithal we have, we are hand-holding many of the state governments also. Odisha Millet Mission, Karnataka, Chhattisgarh, yesterday I was there. So this way we are taking it to the public, and everywhere the millets are being talked about. So we take this from that International Year of Millets. I think my senior colleague Dr. Malhotra is going to speak. I just skip off, and final slide, future perspectives of goals for International Year of Millets is increasing productivity, the scaling of the value chain in millets, global South-South cooperation so that we can take some of our technologies, value chain experience to the African nations where it is primarily consumed as a food. Nutrition through climate smart agriculture, tapping local food system, farm gate processing and value addition, and a stakeholder mix, acceleration of the incubation of millet startups so that the export market can grow. Thank you very much. I would like to conclude saying that eat millets and pulses and stay healthy. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rao. Before the panel steps up on stage, I'd like to request from the panel, from ICR, Dr. S.K. Malhotra to please step up on the podium and present his brief presentation. So, Dr. Rao, would you like to...
Okay, they will do it. He might be doing it.
Dr. Sir, before you please start. Whenever we have posed a question, think about it. What is the strategy to commercialize all those value-added products? Think about it later.
Well, thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody here. So we have already seen a beautiful presentation which has been made by Dr. Dayakar Rao. He has given a complete overview about International Year for Millets, in millets in particular. But here, what I am going to present, the information related to the proposal from Government of India side, which was presented for International Year of Millets at FAO Rome on 4th of October 2018. The presentation which I made, I am presenting here as such. I'll take only 5 minutes. I will not speak, I will not take much more time because already details have been provided into it. So here I mentioned in the introduction part, I mentioned that yes, here these are the set of millets, because millet when we call millet, means it's a group of millet crops. So here I mentioned that millets are very important staple food, and there are more than 131 countries who use this millet, and here these are the traditional crops, and even in Hadappa, Mohenjo-daro reminiscences, these millets were found. So this also I highlighted that here Africa and India, these are the two areas where millet production is happening, and a center of origin for many of the crops. These are the two areas, Africa and as well as India. So the first point which I mentioned there, that why International Year of Millet should be there. So here I highlighted that millets are highly climate resilient crops. These are the crops which are grown in the areas where we have minimal available water and minimal input conditions are there where these crops are grown, and these are the crops which have a kind of early maturity depending upon the different crops. There are few more which take little more time also, but they are adapted to the adverse marginal and changing environment conditions. This was the one point. Second point which I highlighted, that was millets have high nutritional value. Dr. Dayakar has already provided details on this, but I highlighted this point when I made the presentation at FAO Rome, and Government of India proposal was presented at that time. The third point which I mentioned, millets are good for the planets. They take less and give more. This was the point which I highlighted, and millets provide a viable option for the marginal farmers and sustainable production system. So they grow with the minimal fertilizers, as I have already mentioned, and less water is needed for this, and multiple uses are there: food, feed, fodder, as well as biofuels. In brewing also it is being used. So it is eaten in the many forms. So the next point which I mentioned, and where I put the emphasis, that attention is needed, that millets are the global priority. This I highlighted because they possess food, nutritional as well as environmental services properties are there, and these are the benefits which are accrued through these millet crops. And then I attempted to align with the sustainable developmental goals. So first sustainable development goal which I aligned with was to end hunger, achieve food security, improve nutrition, and promote sustainable agriculture. Second point which I highlighted, ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all stages. So SDG 3, Sustainable Development Goal 3 was highlighted there. Then ensuring sustainable consumption and production patterns. So I further try to align with that part and take urgent action to combat climate change and its impact. This I mentioned. And then I gave all these three parameters where I highlighted nutritional security, food security, and third one was environmental services. These were the 3 points which I highlighted at there. And then I mentioned that India has already started a national year for millets, and India also organized one international trade fair in the year 2018. I am mentioning because now these organics and millets, this program is organized every year now. And then the objectives which I presented there, these were the 3 objectives. First was to elevate awareness of the contribution of the nutricereals for food security and nutrition, and inspire all stakeholders including national governments to work towards improving production, productivity and quality of the millets, and draw focus for enhanced investment in R&D and extension services to achieve 1 and 2. So all these objectives were accepted as such by the FAO. And then finally I put into it that from the Government of India side we are putting this proposal, and here FAO Committee on Agriculture should consider this proposal, and and we were lucky enough, and it was endorsed for FAO Council. And then I attended that FAO Council meeting also. So it was accepted in the 26th Committee on Agriculture meeting, and then it was endorsed in 160 FAO Council meeting also. I got the opportunity to attend, and finally United Nations General Assembly did it. Then these are the outcome which is, now it is visible, and these are the initial efforts which we are putting, and now good things are happening. We all need to actively participate in observance of the International Year for Millets. So let us hope for the best. Our millets will get the boost now. Our, Indian millets we need to take forward. Thank you so much. Namaskar.
Thank you, Dr. Malhotra. May I request you please take your seat on the dais. I'd like to request the moderator for this session, Technical Member Niti Aayog, Dr. Raj Bhandari, to please take his position on the dais. And to start the session, we'd also like to join to the panel Mr. Dashrath Tambale, Agricultural Technology Management Agency, Commissionerate of Agriculture, Maharashtra State, to also please join up on stage and be a part of this panel. So, Dr. I've been advised that we have Kinjal Jain, please, who has a millet startup who will be part of this panel. I have also been advised that Dashrath Tambale will not be part of this panel. He's not here at the moment. With that, I'd like to hand you over to your moderator for this session, Technical Member Niti Aayog, Dr. Raj Bhandari. Sir, all yours.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, let me at the outset thank IPGA for giving us this opportunity to position millets along with pulses, and I'm happy to see that this marriage between pulses and millets is happening today. So this is a very auspicious occasion for that. We have heard two luminaries in this field, one who paved the way for millets, the roadmap that was laid for the International Year of Millets by Mr. S.K. Malhotra, and the other who's walking the talk and walking that way, Mr. Dayakar, the scientist from Indian Institute of Millet Research, and he's developed a very great, robust ecosystem to build up social entrepreneurship into millets, and that has been very well accepted by the Government of India to position millets to the global stage. So here let me point out a couple of things. Is that over all these years, we in India have been able to preserve the high degree of genetic variation which allow millets to survive in adverse conditions as well. The Green Revolution was a blessing for millets, though the production decreased, as was pointed out. But what I see is that we have not tampered with the land races in terms of genetic modifications by excessive use of pesticides and fertilizers with millets. So during this period, we now have those land races which are native to certain agroecological zones in India. So you will be surprised that we have huge seed banks, and the genome of these land races is preserved. Currently, the humanity is at a crossroad. There are three things. One is conflict, the Ukrainian crisis we all see, and the disruption in the supply chain. The other is COVID, which has pressed the emergency button for immunity. And the third is climate change. And I think millet offers a very laudable answer for all these issues, because the immune nutrients, what Dr. Dayakar was mentioning about iron, pearl millet has 3 times the iron content of other cereals. Ragi, the finger millet, has 3 times calcium that of milk. many people would not know that milk is very rich in calcium, but ragi is 3 times richer than milk and 10 times richer than wheat and rice. So these are mind-boggling things. The little millet which was served outside has 3 times fiber content and 7 times that of rice. So overall, in my sojourn in last 4 decades, we have been trying to find that food is thy medicine to discover. And here we have millets, which really has come as a savior for humanity, in the sense that we are addressing all these, a plethora of problems by use of millets. So I will open this discussion for our panel members, and before that, can I have, I wanted to give a small roadmap as to how it could be commercialized, because what Dr. Chandrasekhar said, we look at, this is the, the aim to grow millets into mainstream industry. And we set these objectives. How do we drive consumer demand so that they become the aspirational food, the food of the masses? What at present the condition is that only the elite, the higher income quintile group is able to afford millets, but it has to be an aspirational food for masses. And we have to have processed products, especially supporting small and medium enterprises. So what are those challenges and how they can be filled? That I will pose to the panel, and establish the more efficient and fair value chain for maximizing returns to the small holding farmers. You see, in India, we have a majority of farmers who have less than 1 or 2 hectares of land. How do we have a 360-degree approach for increasing the farmer income? So we have kept the farmer in the center. And how can, because you are all from the private industry, I will urge you as to see how you can contribute into developing a blended model, how you could blend together in terms of offering any private capital investment, bridging the gap between the traditional funding and the impact investment. How can the private sector bridge that gap, de-risking investment and building up a very good win-win situation for both the private investor, the industry, and the farmer. And for that, the actions, of course, the health and nutrition benefits have been very well endowed. I am a regular consumer of millets, and I find, at this age, I feel very, very energetic. I reached here at 1:30 a.m. in the morning, and we have had a very active, hectic day, but still millets provide that energy to sustain. And the actions we need as the policy support, the farmer support, the MSME, and the research is so important, where the private sector could drive, because innovation will drive growth, and the public campaign. So with this, I come to our panel, very esteemed panel, to ask them a blended, the questions I would want is, first is, what is your perspective towards the demand side dynamics of millet market? And for that, I would want you to probe into the market size, the market segment placement, the future demand growth, and the overall market trends. So would you like to, she's a startup, Ms. Jain, would you like to
Sure, sir.
comment on it?
So I think millet demand is something that we have been trying, everybody from government to startups, with the help of IIMR, we are all trying to establish a demand right now of millet-based products in the market. As the major drawback of millets that we have is the usability, getting it in the usable form, and the commercialization that Sir was talking about. We startups along with IIMR, everybody has solved for the usability of the product and got the product at par with the wheat and rice based products. So there is the demand. I think one of the things that I always feel that pegging it against wheat and rice would be unfair to millets, because the nutritive value is far more higher and far more superior when it comes to millets. So incorporating millets in the rice market, that is the demand that we have. We have to cover the wheat and rice market, and we are here to take a share of wheat and rice market and replace it with millets, and the nutritional panel of what any millet has is much more superior. So demand is massive, and millet market is huge. We all are trying our best to get the product commercialized in various, like we are doing products which can be used in the international market also. Like we have got millets, millet breads, millet cakes, millet pancakes, which are consumed by not only people in India but people abroad internationally also. So millets can be used in any range of products globally. So the market is quite open for us. And so there's a massive demand for millets as well.
Great, thank you. So very well said. The demand has to grow, but what we find is that the demand is already there, but there is the supply is stagnant, and therefore to Dr. Dayakar I would want to know what is the demand supply disconnect. How do you connect the dots between production, aggregation, processing and consumption, getting it to the plate? You've shown the plate. How does it get there? Let us know.
I think today's context, I think we are much better. See, we'll have to talk not just today, now even for talking what Kinjal was talking about, making bread out of millets. It's not a very easy thing. You know, there is no gluten in it. Without gluten, minus gluten, bringing it to that stage. So we have come a long way with regard to this. The supply chain, which is almost, as Bhandariji was telling, that people grow half an acre or 1 acre, and with that aggregation and bulking and the supply chain management is a very vital for us to commercialize any product and all those things. But in today's context, I think with the FPOs coming in a picture where the aggregation bulking taking place, and some of the private sector like ITC and others are also taking up the bulking things, some models have emerged out. So there is long way that we need to go as far as the supply chain management has to happen. But the demand is showing the way now. Today's context with the International Year of Millets, government pushing it in a very major way that now one estimate says that we are short by 40%. What we are growing, we are short of our demand by 40%. Now if that is the case, one reason that we don't have a concrete figures is that there are no established figures, but some surveys, some estimates has brought out, and the emergence of the millet industry is showing the way they are trying to come out. Now today's context, 400 startups plus, at least I am sure that out of 600 startups that have come in the past 5 years, at least 400 to 300 startups still are there despite the COVID that is there. They are highly resilient, and they are able to, with the passionate people coming from the women background already represented very clearly, and people from elite, especially IITs, IIMs, so that sort of a thing, leaving their jobs and coming into this sector, trying to show that this is quite stable, relatively stable compared to many other startups where the attrition rate is very high. So with the demand there on that, and trying to plug the gap between the production and consumption markets which were completely disconnected in the past. I told you a very vital point that this crop is a different crop, unlike pulses, wheat, rice and all those things where it is only grown and consumed by the farmers only. So you are taking a journey where from a domestic crop to the commercialization crop. It took some time and it would take some more time. So in order to plug these gaps and try to bring in, but the crucial point what I feel is that in order to increase the area and increase the productivity, as there is a huge, I have shown you the one graph which shows that the productivity curve is positive side. I think that is a very big positive sinus, and I think Professor Vijay Paul Sharma knows about there is something like yield gaps. So we can plug the low hanging fruit is how you can plug the yield gaps and try to attain and come out with the productivity increases. But the new areas, now I am very happy that the Punjab is coming up with millets. Punjab is only rice and wheat. You go, a big movement started there about the millets. What it means, I think there is some warm signal saying that this millet is also going to a high productivity regions. It means that they are thing, and the research is also taking place in such a way that it is traditionally grown in a Kharif season, but it is tried out in other seasons whether we can increase the productivity and all that. So there are many measures that are happening, but in a short term perhaps we are likely to face some sort of a price increase because of the demand supply tussle that is happening, and all economists would agree with me, but eventually we are going to really resolve this issue, and I am sure that millet, here I think the government policy or anybody's policy is not to replace rice and wheat completely and all this. We are trying to see that it may have a legitimate place. As you have in the cropping system, diversified food systems also should have a millets in that. The nutrition science says you should have a diversity in your diet. So rice and wheat has really taken away that liberty that we have. Now we want to bring that millets should be part of our day diet. I think that's the way
so that point
we should call, and eventually supply and demand will be.
Absolutely, that point is very well taken, and for nutrition security, it is important that millets come, at least 80 to 90 grams in comparison to 270 grams of cereals that we consume, that they form a sizable portion of your food plate. We, as a scientist, I can tell you that now we have a systematic review and meta-analysis to showcase the benefits of millets in diabetes, in hyperlipidemia, in obesity, in calcium retention, in gut microbiota. You know how millets, because they are rich in fiber, and where the fiber is stripped in the polished grains and refined rice and all, you will find millets as consumed as whole grains. So apart from the fact that methionine complements the amino acid profile, so it is going to nutrition security, as was mentioned by Mr. Kothari, that millets are savior for and the way for nutrition security of our country. That would be important. So I come to Dr. Malhotra to understand whether it is possible to map all the millets. There are 9 types of millets, and in India different regions grow different millets. So according to the agroecological zones, are we able to map all the types and the varieties? There are hundreds of varieties of millets. Let me tell you, sorghum, which is Jawari, has 4 gram percent to 17 gram percent of iron, 17 milligram percent of iron. That is the range of iron content in different varieties. And likewise, we have the small or the minor millets which are grown in different regions. So firstly, is it possible to map them by their nutrient levels, the millets by the nutrients? Second thing is, how can we incentivize farmer to move from arid zones to the irrigated lands? Because if the global demand rises, we are not in a position to supply millets. So how do we increase production? And finally, where genome sequencing and our research and development for enhancing nutrient varieties, the biofortified varieties which have been developed by Indians, Indian scientists, can these hybrid biofortified varieties be a solution?
Well, thank you so much. Dr. Bhandari, yeah, these are the very relevant questions which you have mentioned. Yes, we have a lot of biodiversity which is available in the country. That biodiversity is required to be appreciably utilized because we are the primary center of origin for few of the crops, and for few of the crops we are secondary center of origin. But we really need to look into, because these all are our conventional crops, because those were replaced by virtue of time, and further we were having a strong procurement system for wheat and rice, but now we are putting emphasis on these millet crops. Millet crops are the crops which are known for the crops of adversities, because our country has a kind of cultivation of the crops. Mostly 141 million hectare area is under cultivation, and if we consider the cropping intensity, it goes to 194 million hectare. So here 50% of the production that comes from the arid ecosystem, rain-fed ecosystem. So these are the crops which are much suited to the arid ecosystem. So we need to provide a diversity in production system, diversity in the diet. So these all points are required to be looked into, and these crops fit well into it. So that biodiversity which we have, we need to appreciably utilize. 96 varieties have been developed by Indian Institute of Millet Research as well as our National Agriculture Research and Education System. So those 96 varieties have been developed for the different agroclimatic zones. So considering the point that here agroclimatic zones, they play the greater role. So accordingly a mapping has been done, and Government of India, Ministry of Agriculture decided that we need to promote these crops. So accordingly 202 districts were identified in 24 states where millets could be grown. So our plan, which is a national mission for Nutri-Cereal, was started. We gave the new name, Nutri-Cereals. Earlier it was called as millets, now it's a Shri Anna. So this is again a kind of branding which is now happening, and country has already done a kind of branding that we need to promote our own millets. So here 202 districts have been identified and a mapping has been done, and then again out of these 202 districts, 100 districts which are having low productivity, those have also been identified, and we put all these mapping information into our plan, National Food Security Mission Program. So now it is being implemented, where we have a seed production system, and then further augmenting the production through the new areas. And also you mentioned about some other Punjab and several other areas where we need to introduce, and these crops very well fit into those problematic areas where water is now depleting, and with the minimal water condition we can
we are on the growth trajectory, and I understand we have many questions. So before that, before we take a couple of questions, I will just put across to you that we will hand over a questionnaire for those private sector industry people who would want to become a part of the blended finance system. Is there any scope where the capital from public, private and philanthropies could be blended together to have a way forward which could be a win-win for all stakeholders? It is not just giving any knowledge or your technical know-how or capital, but it is to see that the entire ecosystem gets ignited, gets into unless commercialization, with that profitability has to come. So how do we make it a profitable, scalable idea? That questionnaire can be taken from Renuka. For those who are interested, they can fill up, and
So we have time for one question.
Any questions which...
So one question, we have just time for one question. Please stand up so we can see you, sir. Thank you. Identify yourself.
My question is for the panel. I am a freelancer agri software developer. So, when the finance minister was tom-tomming about the millets in the budget speech, I quickly went to the farmers locally in the Karnataka district to just see what is the ground report of the millet over there. So I got to know that the yield for rice is 35 quintals per acre, and that is costing around rupees 2,000 around somewhere for them.
What's your question?
So instead of Karnataka government introducing millets in the PDS system, it was a flop year for the government of Karnataka for convincing farmers to grow millets. So my final question to you is that how is government of India reaching farmers or convincing farmers to procure their millets, and since the yield is so low that per acre.
So we are trying to provide high quality, high yield seeds to the farmers through the seed hubs. That is one thing. Some governments like Karnataka and even Chhattisgarh, they are offering an incentive of 10,000 rupees per hectare of land where they are able to sow millets. Similarly, other states are having an arrangement to buy back, the produce. So the minimum support price for millets has been declared, the major millets. For minor millets, it is yet to come. But we appreciate your question, and government is making all attempts to incentivize and to make it profitable for the farmer to grow. Thank you. Any more?
No, sir, we don't have any more time for any more questions. I don't think there's anyone who's asking a question, so thank you about that, sir.
Okay, then. Thank you so much. I thank all the panel members.
Thank you very much.
Sir, I just take the permission to say that now we are here from Millets and the International Year of Millets. With your kind permission, we all stand up and take a pledge, let's millet. I think all of your cooperation is solicited. Let us stand and take a pledge saying that we stretch our right hand and say that let's millet. So here I would like to define what let's millet is. It is not replacing rice and wheat, but also substituting millets with rice and wheat. I think all of you agree there is no force, but let us take a pledge for a healthy living. We shall all at a time shout saying, let's millet. Let's millet.
Let's millet.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
That's very good. May I request the panel to please stay on stage? I'd like to request Mr. Jitu Beda to please step up on stage and felicitate the panel with mementos from the organizers. Starting off with our moderator, Dr. Raj Bhandari, technical member, Niti Ayog. Moving on, from IIMR, Indian Institute of Military Research, we have Dr. Dayakar Rao. Up next from ICAR, Indian Council of Agricultural Research, we have Dr. S.K. Malhotra. And then last but not least, we have entrepreneur Kinjal Jain. May I request the panel to please give us a memento photograph. Dr. Bhandari, I understand there are lots of other questions also for the millet panel, especially on the commercial applications of millets. So if there's any way that people can get involved. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for this very interesting panel, the Millets panel, and of course, as they say, let's millet. And we have a little time, very little time, and we've got to fill it.